بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وأفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين. In the name of God, the merciful, the beneficent, all prayer and praise is due to the Prophet Muhammad and his holy household. First and foremost, I'd like to give my condolences to Sahib al-Amr wa Zaman and to the Muslim community for the commemoration of the Darba of Amir al-Mu'mineen, the day when Amir al-Mu'mineen was struck. And I ask Allah, by the favor of Amir al-Mu'mineen, to bless us and to guide us to the true path. Continuing with our series of lectures, the first 2 days we spoke about the personality and the attributes of Imam Al-Hassan, and today we will speak about the concept of his treaty, the sulh. First things first, we need to realize that there are 5 treaties in question, or 5 treaties for us to look into when we want to look into the sulh of Imam Al-Hassan, or 4 treaties before we look into the sulh of Imam Al-Hassan, to try to see is the sulh of Imam Al-Hassan, the treaty of Imam Al-Hassan, is it different from the others that were done by the father of Imam Al-Hassan and the grandfather of Imam Al-Hassan, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or do they fit the same criteria? First and foremost, let's look into those. The first 3 were the treaties that were signed by the Prophet, which was the treaty with Bani Dumra, and the treaty with Bani Ajsha, and the treaty of Hudaybiyah. Now, the 4th one, which was by Amir al-Mu'mineen, is Sulh al-Tahkim in Safin, and that leads us to the 5th one, which is Sulh al-Imam Al-Hassan alayhi salatu wassalam. First things first, we have to, when we look at the first 3 treaties, the treaties that were signed by the Prophet, they served 2 purposes: a political one and a military one. As for the political side, the Prophet sallallahu wasallam alayhi, being that this was at the rise of Islam, the beginning of Islam, and that the Muslims were not very strong or very endorsed or very reinforced, these treaties opened a way for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to show the honesty, his honesty, and the honesty of Islam, and the fact that when they signed a treaty, that they would not negate that treaty, that they would not do anything to nullify the treaty, versus Quraysh, who would have and who did and who are known to do so. That's number 1. The second thing is, it gave the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which is the military side of things, it gave the Prophet the chance to build up the Islamic community, both militarily speaking and in numbers. And we see that evident in the Sulh al-Hudaybiyah, when the non-believers nullified the treaty and they broke the treaty. The Prophet ﷺ had gathered the Muslim community to more than 10,000 strong, to the fact that when the Prophet went into Mecca after they had broken the treaty, that he was militarily stronger than them and politically in the right. How so? Number 1 is that they themselves broke the treaty. They themselves attacked the Muslims and killed a number of the Muslims. The Muslims did not start it. The second thing is, when the Prophet went in, he went in with a military that could have overswept them. Now, for all intents and purposes, in that time, an invader or a conqueror that would go into a place that they have conquered, such as the case where the Prophet went into Mecca to conquer it, they would have killed every single individual, and they would have shed blood, and they would have taken concubines, and they would have bought over taken the wealth of the people. However, we see the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he went in, he had Amir al-Mu'mineen call out, "He who enters his home is at peace. He is safe. He's amin. He who leaves his home is safe. He who enters the house of Abu Sufyan, the leader of Quraysh, the individual that had shed blood and caused all of these problems, is safe." Now, this is unprecedented at the time, because this is not known. Usually when people conquer, when someone in power conquers, like I said, they shed blood. However, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not do that. On the contrary, the Prophet left everything where it is. He didn't even kill his enemies, the enemies who tried to kill him multiple times, the enemies who have waged war against him multiple times, time and time again. The individuals who killed his uncle Hamza Radwanullahi ta'ala alayhi, the individuals who chopped up Hamza's body, the individual who took a bite and chewed the liver of Hamza, he did not kill them. While he could have, and he had the right to, however, he chose to show hilm in that sense and not carry that action. We come to the fourth point, the sulh of tahkim. The sulh al-tahkim, and we'll visit this historically speaking, and then we'll kind of dive into it. First and foremost, the battle between Amir al-Mu'mineen salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi and Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan in Siffin, or the Battle of Siffin as it's known, was a very major point in Islam. Why? Because it had divided the Muslim nation. On the one hand, you had Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan. And Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan had been in rule in Sham for a number of years. During the time of Abu Bakr, during the time of Umar, it's towards the end of Abu Bakr's time that he was appointed after the death of his older brother, after the death of Muawiyah's older brother, during the time of Umar ibn al-Khattab, and during the time of Uthman. When Amir al-Mu'mineen came, Muawiyah made the claim that he wanted to seek vengeance for the killers of Uthman. When Amir al-Mu'mineen said to him, point out who are these killers, and we will do qisas, we will judge them, Muawiyah said, you and your army. Meaning what? Meaning that Muawiyah wanted war with Amir al-Mu'mineen. It was irrelevant, because if he didn't know who the individuals were that killed Uthman, how can you take vengeance from individuals that you don't know who? Or how can you judge individuals if you can't identify them? Muawiyah carried the shirt of Uthman for a purpose, and that purpose was what? Was to start war with Amir al-Mu'mineen in order to take the power away from Amir al-Mu'mineen. Now, Amir al-Mu'mineen salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi, by all intents and purposes, did not want the peace treaty. The peace treaty was imposed upon the Imam, or let's say it was compulsory upon the Imam. We see that in one narration, Nasr ibn Huzam narrates, he says, a rider came to Amir al-Mu'mineen at night, and he says to him, Ya Ali, do you not see that both Muslims pray to the same Kaaba? Both of us read the same Quran. Both of us do the same Salat. How will you face your God on Judgment Day with the blood on your hands? They say Amir al-Mu'mineen looked at him and he said to him, I have beaten this issue. Meaning that I have looked into this issue, and I have looked into it frontwards and backwards. Meaning I have left no stone untouched or unturned when it comes to this issue. And I find no other way other than to fight these individuals, or to blaspheme in everything that Allah has descended upon His Prophet. So basically I have two options. Either that I go to war with these individuals, or that I blaspheme in everything that Allah has commanded. Now, some might say that seems like a really tough situation, or that seems like it's a bit far-fetched. To that, let's look at it from different aspects, or let's take a deeper dive into this concept. First and foremost is, what does the Khilafah represent? Second is, if the Khilafah, so the first we said, what does the Khilafah represent? Second thing is, this Khilafah that we are talking about, who is trying to take this Khilafah? And does the Prophet have anything to say about who is allowed to be in charge of this Khilafah? And third thing is, what was the Muslims' point of view, or what would have the Muslims benefited or lost depending on the individuals who took this Khilafah? First and foremost, we read in the Quran says, Inni ja'ilun fil ardi khalifa, I will be placing a viceroy on earth. Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi, our Prophet, is the viceroy of Allah. With that in mind, his Khalifa, his successor, has to be a representation of the Prophet. Otherwise, there would be corruption. Why? Because the Prophet, ma yantiqu anil hawa in huwa illa wahyun yuha. Now, Ya Rasulullah, if we were to ask the Prophet, this Khilafah that has been bestowed upon you by your Lord, Who should it go to after you? Should it go to any regular individual? Should we, the individuals, vote for an individual? The answer is simple, no. Why? Because we didn't have a choice in choosing the original Khalifa. Why? Because that Khalifa is a representation of the Almighty. And a representation of the Almighty is not chosen by mankind. That representation is chosen by God, because God knows how to deliver His message. Allah knows best how to deliver His message. Therefore, that Khalifa is chosen by Him. Likewise, when it comes to the successor of that Khalifa, so after the Prophet, who was the Khalifa of Allah, the one that should come after him has to have the same attributes of the Prophet. In what sense? In the sense that when he speaks according to the will of Allah, not according to his own whims, his own wants, his own opinions, his trials and tribulations. And that is very important. Why? Because if you come to me to judge you over something, I will judge you according to my knowledge, according to what I understand. And that could be problematic, because we know that we are in that we fight between the concept of nature and nurture. That we take on certain things from our nature, from how we were born and where we were born, and some things from nurture, from what we have been raised, the experiences that we have, what we have been taught. When it comes to the Ma'soom and to the Prophet, that is not in play. Why? Because they speak on behalf of God. The Quran says that وَمَا يَنْطِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَىٰ. He does not speak of his own will. He is but a messenger that delivers that message. He is a messenger. Therefore, his word is the word of Allah. Now, one could say that is in the sense of the Prophet, because the Prophet receives the wahy of Allah. What about his khulafa? We say the Prophet gave us that guideline when he said, إِنِّي تَارِكٌ فِيكُمُ الثَّقَلَيْنِ. I have left within you the two weights, and they shall not separate until they come to me on Judgment Day. Meaning what? Meaning one is with the other. And I've used this example multiple times. The two of them make up Islam. Kitabullah wa itrati ahl bayti. The book of Allah and my descendants, my progeny, my family, who are whom? Muhammad is their father. Sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. Fatima wa Ali wal Hassan wal Hussein. These five individuals are the Ahlul Bayt. The Prophet and his family. These individuals do not separate from the Quran. Therefore, if they do not separate, that their word is the word of Allah, their word is the Quran. That's why when it comes to tashri', as we mentioned in a previous episode, the tashri' is Kitabullah wa Sunnat al-Rasul wa Ahlul Bayt. The way, the method of the Prophet and his Ahlul Bayt. Now, those two, the book and the family of Allah, make up Islam. A part of Islam is Khilafah. A part of Islam is rule. These two make up that one thing which is Islam, which is similar to, as I've said in the past, to water. Water is made up of what? Of H2O. If you separate the oxygen, you no longer have water. So these two things make up one, which is Islam. Now, the Imam says that I see nothing, that I see no other way other than to fight them or to blaspheme. So that answers the first question, which is, what does this khilafah mean? The second thing that we need to look at is the concept of who should be in charge. We have narrations, multiple narrations in both schools of thought that says one of the servants of the Prophet, he says, I have heard the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wa with my own ear say that the khilafah is forbidden upon the sons of Abu Sufyan. And if you were to see Muawiyah sitting on my pulpit or on my minbar, then strike him down where he stands. Then kill him where he stands. Now some might say, hold on, but that's kind of aggressive. We don't know the Prophet to be this aggressive. We don't know the Prophet to be in this sense. And I say, yes, that is when it comes to normal issues. However, when it comes to Islam, and the right of Islam and the survival of Islam, then the Prophet has to be aggressive, has to stand his ground, so to speak. Continuing, the individuals that run that take on this duty, the duty of khilafah, of ruler, of the ruler, the right ruler in Islam, have to be individuals not only pious and righteous, they have to be men of God. They have to be individuals that are sponsored by God, that understand God's law, and that do not speak of their own will. And we see this in the sense of our Imams, where a man came to Al-Imam Al-Sadiq salawatullahi salamu alayhi, or Imam Al-Baqir, and he said to him, I have come to you to see what opinions you have regarding certain issues that I have, so that I might take the correct of your answer and leave the incorrect. They say the Imam looked at him and he says, you have come to the wrong place. We're not individuals that say my opinion. Rather, I say, Haddathani Abi. I have been informed by my father, who was informed by his father, who was informed by his father, who was informed by the Prophet, who was informed by Jibreel, who was informed by Allah. So we're not individuals that judge and that say based on opinions. We're individuals that narrate the hadith of our Lord, the word of our Lord. These are the kind of individuals that need to be in charge. When we look at the sulh, we say that the sulh of Siffin was compulsory upon the Imam. That the Imam did not want to give the sulh out of his own will, and we narrated in the narration that was from Amir Al-Mu'mineen. Now, where did this take place? How did this happen? How does Amir Al-Mu'mineen go from a stance where he says that I face only two issues, either killing them or blaspheming, yet the Imam signed the sulh? Let's be clear about one thing. Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan had a lot of propaganda going for him, and he played his cards very well in all aspects. Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan taught the people of Sham, of the Levant, and Damascus specifically, that he was the true descendant of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Not only that, that Ali ibn Abi Talib salawatullahi wasalamu alayhi was a bad individual. I don't want to use any other terms to describe him, or in other ways to describe how Muawiyah spoke about Amir al-Mu'mineen. To the point where individuals, when they would hear the name of Ali ibn Abi Talib, what would come to their mind is an individual who did not pray, is an individual who was drunk. Now, these things in modern day, when we hear these, we say, is it possible? But that is what Muawiyah did. Muawiyah used to insult Amir al-Mu'mineen and used to command people to insult Amir al-Mu'mineen during prayers, during the lectures of prayers, for approximately 40 years. For 40 years this continued. Even after his death, Bani Umayyah took on that role up until the time of the Umayyah Khalifa. I forgot his name. His name doesn't come to me right now. Umar ibn Abdul Aziz. Up until his time, the Amir was cursed and damned on the minbar of the Muslims. Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan had a man with him in battle with him, who goes by the name of Amr ibn al-As, who was known to be an extremely clever individual. When they saw the tide turning and the fact that Muawiyah was losing the battle, they came up with the concept of putting the Quran, on top of the spears and raising them. And they started calling Al-Hukmu Lillah La Laka Ya Ali. That rule is for Allah, not for you, Ali ibn Abi Talib. The people, the weak people, the individuals who did not have faith in Amir al-Mu'mineen, this shook them to their core. This shook them because why? Because on the one hand, you have Muawiyah here, who has been yelling for years now after Jamal. He has been yelling that Muawiyah killed the friends of the Prophet, the companions of the Prophet. Who are the companions? The companions, Talha and Zubair. So, adding to the fact that he was falsely claiming to want to take vengeance for Uthman, after Jamal, after the war with Aisha and Talha and Zubair, and the death of Talha and Zubair, Muawiyah started saying, Ali ibn Abi Talib killed Talha and Zubair. But he forgot to mention that Muawiyah and his army killed Ammar ibn Yasir. the one who the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi says, Ya Ammar taqtuluka al-fi'atu al-baghiya. O Ammar, the oppressing or the blaspheming group are the ones that would kill you. Nonetheless, the Imam sallallahu wasallamu alayhi was in a position where the people turned against him. In fact, in a quote, Amir al-Mu'mineen, he says to them, obey me for this 1 hour, for 60 minutes. Obey me for just a small part of a short time, and then disobey me for the rest of eternity. So obey me just this small time, and then disobey me for eternity. No problem. Obey me right now. Rather, the people did not. So it left Amir al-Mu'mineen in a position where they said that we want to do tahkim. Tahkim means that you bring that you bring someone from your end and someone from the opposing end, and they sit together and they come up with a solution. Amir al-Mu'mineen chose Malik al-Ashtar al-Nakha'i radwanullahi ta'ala alayh. However, the people on his side did not agree. They said, we don't want Malik al-Ashtar. We want Abu Musa al-Ash'ari. So they didn't even let the Imam choose his own defense. They chose his defense for him. On the other hand, Muawiyah came up with Amr ibn al-As as his defense. So they came up to an idea, these two individuals. They were basically in cahoots together, and they came up with the idea that they would do azl, that they would separate both Amir al-Mu'mineen and Muawiyah from power, and that they would let the people decide for someone else. They say that Abu Musa al-Ash'ari went up onto the minbar, and he says, I remove Ali ibn Abi Talib from the Khilafah the way I take off my ring, like so. And he put his ring aside, leaving his hand barren. Meaning what? Meaning that Ali ibn Abi Talib is not fit for the Khilafah. Then Umar ibn al-As came up, and he says, and I remove Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan from Khilafah the way I remove my ring from this finger, and I place him in Khilafah the way I place this ring in this finger. So what did he do? He basically played Abu Musa al-Ash'ari. They had a deal that they would both kick them out of power, that they would remove both of the Imam and Muawiyah from power. However, Amr ibn al-As played over Abu Musa al-Ash'ari and instated Muawiyah. When that happened, certain people looked at the Imam and said, what did you do? You gave up the power. Other individuals looked at the Imam and said, you know what? Ali ibn Abi Talib was right, which is the Khawarij. They say that he was right, but when he gave the power to Muawiyah, he became wrong. The same individuals that forced Amir al-Mu'mineen into the treaty are the same individuals that negated Amir al-Mu'mineen or that abandoned Amir al-Mu'mineen. To that, the Amir al-Mu'mineen, he says, "Ubtilitu bi akhbath an-nas." I have been tested with the worst of individuals. If I command them, they do not listen to my command, and if I follow them, they leave me alone. So they wanted nothing to. They wanted to do as they wanted to do, regardless of Amir al-Mu'mineen. They did not want to follow, and they did not want to lead. Nonetheless, leading us to the Imam Al-Hassan salawatullahi salamuhu alayhi, and I'm sorry I have to cut this short because time is of the essence and I don't have a lot of time. First things we need to realize that the people of that time were divided, and that the people, as we have mentioned, were through the propaganda of Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan, could no longer tell haqq from batil. That's why they narrate a man came to Amir al-Mu'mineen and he says, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, I saw you and Salman al-Muhammadi on one end, and I saw al-Mu'mineen Aisha wa Talha wa Zubair on the other end, and I had no idea who was right and who was wrong. Hence Amir al-Mu'mineen responds to him and he tells him, he says, do not measure men by the truth. Rather know the truth and you shall know its men. Meaning what? Meaning that the people were divided. The people couldn't tell the truth anymore. They did not know haqq anymore, which isn't far from the position that we're at right now. Uneducated, people who don't bother understanding their faith or understanding the political situation, yet they are willing to pass judgment upon the world. Nonetheless, Imam Al-Hassan salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi, first and foremost, we have to make one thing clear. that the treaty was not the treaty of Imam Al-Hassan, and that Imam Al-Hassan was not the one who wanted the treaty. Imam Al-Hassan, for all intents and purposes, had his army ready and he marched his army. Rather, certain individuals, certain aristocrats in Kufa and certain generals in Kufa were in cahoots with Muawiyah. Under the darkness of night, they sent Muawiyah letters saying, if you want. By the way, Muawiyah used to spend money for these individuals. They were on his payroll, so to speak. They said, if Al-Hassan does not sign a treaty with you, we are willing to imprison him and bring him to you as captive. Or we are willing to kill him, whatever you command. That's one. Second thing is, Al-Imam Al-Hassan was attacked in a specific area during his march. Not only that, he was abandoned by the people around him. They turned their back up on the Imam and they left him behind them. Now, when we continue, and I'm sorry, I'm going really quickly here because of the time, because according to my clock we only have 4 minutes and we have to finish today, because tomorrow inshallah we'll begin with Amir Al-Mu'mineen salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi. Al-Imam Al-Hassan, he looked at certain groups and he said to them, لَقَدْ كُنْتُمْ فِي صِفِّينَ وَدِينُكُمْ أَمَامَ دُنْيَاكُمْ. During the battle of Siffin, when you guys stood up against Muawiyah, when you were fighting, you placed your religion before your life, before your world, before this dunya. However, now you are placing your dunya before your religion. The people at that time were so convoluted in their understanding that they could not separate between Muawiyah and the Imam. Salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi. That's one. The second thing that we need to look at is the fact that the peace treaty was the peace treaty of Imam Al-Hassan and Hussein. That it wasn't only Imam Al-Hassan that agreed to it, that Imam Al-Hussein agreed to it. And those are one of the points that we will talk about, inshallah. There were several points that were mentioned in the peace treaty. The first things that were mentioned in the peace treaty is that Muawiyah has no right to judgment. So Muawiyah had no right to judge over two individuals that have conflict. Number one. Muawiyah had to carry on under the specialized scholars ruling regarding Sunnah and Kitab, meaning that he could not come up with his own understanding, that he was not musharra'. The third thing is that Muawiyah only has power for 6 months and then he relinquishes it to Imam Al-Hassan for 6 months. The fourth thing is that Muawiyah, after his death, that the treaty is only valid for the life of Muawiyah. After the death of Muawiyah, the treaty goes back to Imam Al-Hassan. And should anything happen to Imam Al-Hassan, then it would go to Imam Al-Hussein. So those were some of the conditions. Now it's very long, we don't have time to get into all of them. Those were the conditions. So for all intents and purposes, the Imam did not relinquish power to Muawiyah in total. The Imam relinquished the title of being the king, not even a Khalifa. And that was the other thing that I forgot to mention, is that Muawiyah was not to be titled as Amir Al-Mu'mineen. And that's why they narrate that one of the servants, and I mentioned this narration earlier, one of the servants of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he entered and he saw Muawiyah sitting. So he said, Assalamu alayka ayyuhal malik. Peace be upon you, O king. They say Muawiyah got visibly upset. And he says to him, why would you not call me Amir Al-Mu'mineen? So this man looks, the servant, he looks at Muawiyah and he says to him, how do I call you Amir Al-Mu'mineen when I have personally heard the Prophet with my own 2 ears saying that Khilafah is forbidden upon the sons of Abu Sufyan? And that if should anyone see Muawiyah standing on my pulpit, meaning standing in a position of power in Khilafah, to strike him and kill him where he sees them. However, Muawiyah broke that treaty. Broke that treaty how? Broke that treaty. Now, some say it was Khawarij, others say that Muawiyah had knowledge. Nonetheless, Imam Al-Hassan salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi was killed. He was poisoned. When Imam Al-Hassan was killed, we see that Imam Al-Hussein did not rise up against Muawiyah. Rather, he stayed in his position. Now some would ask why. And the simple answer, or the answer itself is simple, is that the people were not ready. The people were not ready to understand who Bani Umayyah were. Bani Umayyah had duped everyone in their time. Bani Umayyah had misconstrued Islam to everyone. And it took that from 21 Hijri until 41 or 45 Hijri, it took the time of Muawiyah in order for the people to truly understand who Muawiyah was. Muawiyah killed a very large number of Sahaba. Muawiyah used to deal in alcohol. Muawiyah used to deal in the idols that the Arab used to worship in the past. And it took that time in order for people to understand who Bani Umayyah was. And it took that time in order for people to realize who Yazid ibn Muawiyah was. You see, when Muawiyah, before his demise, when he stood up and he says, after me, I want my son to become the Khalifa, a senior from the people sitting stood up and he says, what are you talking about? Yazid has taught us, has shown us who he was. You're standing up there, you're telling us that Yazid is good, Yazid is very smart, Yazid has revealed to us his true nature. Yazid was known to be an individual who was fasiq. Therefore, the Imam Al-Hassan salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi, one of the main purposes of his treaty is to prepare the people to understand or to prepare the way for Imam Al-Hussein salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi. That's why we say, had Imam Al-Hussein been in the position of Imam Al-Hassan, there would have been no difference. He would have done the exact same thing that Imam Al-Hassan did. And had Imam Al-Hassan been in the place of Imam Al-Hussein, he would have done the exact same thing. Because the people of the time of Imam Al-Hassan were not prepared to revolt or to stand up or to have a revolution against Muawiyah. However, during the time of Imam Al-Hussein, a lot of people still weren't ready. But it had been clear. The path had been cleared. Therefore, through the death of Imam Al-Hussein salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi, that's basically the straw that broke the camel's back. That's when people revolted against Bani Umayyah. And that's why after the death of Imam Hussein, Bani Umayyah did not last very long, because it had been made evident and clear to the people who Bani Umayyah were. والحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين.